welcome back, members of Westmore Country Club. Once again, I'm Vince, this is Jason, and we're coming to you live from my backyard. So, Westmore's not open. We really wish it was. It's a 70-degree day today, and unfortunately we're stuck here. But just because the golf course is closed doesn't mean we can't learn and practice in our backyard. So I've got a little bit of space here. I've got 15 yards to the white pole and then 25 yards to the red and white striped pole in the back. And we're going to talk about simple pitching techniques today. I'm pretty good at it. We're going to talk about how that works and why it works, what clubs we use. And here's Jason.
All right, thanks, Vince. So what I'm going to have you do, let's hit 2 shots to that white pole. So I really want to see your motion. Pretty good. I could argue it was a bad hop.
The ground slopes from right to left. I got to account for that. That's better.
That's pretty darn good. So there's 3 things that I see that happen almost every time, and they happen at a really high level in your pitching motion. The first thing I want to talk about is talk about ball position. All right, so for me, I like the ball to be kind of in the middle of the stance. I don't like it too far back. I think that promotes too much of a down motion with the leading edge digging in. I like it kind of in the middle or even in the front. If I'm trying to change trajectory a little bit, we might play with it a little bit more, maybe move it a little bit up. But you have your ball position pretty neutral, pretty middle most of the time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so middle for me is my sternum. And so as if you draw a line directly from where my sternum is, that's my middle. So you can see that ball is pretty darn near close to middle, although optically it may look forward because it's off of my left foot, but in actuality it's center.
Yeah, and the stance width is actually going to affect that as well, because we have a little bit more of a narrow stance, so it may look a little bit forward with that. So the second key that Vince does really well is he controls the trajectory of the ball going in towards the target. So if I was to throw a ball at that white pole, for me, I'm throwing it low just like Vince did there, because I don't feel like I can control it, the distance that is, by throwing it up real high. Vince tried to do it, almost hit us. So he controls that trajectory extremely well. So what he does is he controls that by controlling the face and the dynamic loft of that golf club. So what he will feel is his hand maybe being slightly forward of the ball. So if I have the ball here, when we go to impact, the handle is going to be slightly forward of the club head. Is that about right? Is that what you feel?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And definitely I feel not only that, but for me, my feeling is after the shot, the release.
Yeah, great. So that kind of leads me into the third key of what Vince does really well in his pitching motion, is he really rotates his upper body well. And what that does is that shallows out the bottom of the arc. So if we didn't rotate, we would see more of a chunk shot, as they say. So what Vince does really well is he kind of marries the dynamic loft and the rotation of that upper body. So that's why he doesn't stick the club into the ground. Hit one more for me really quick. And I want you to pay attention to actually the finish, and I'll explain why after he hits the shot. That's great. So hold your finish right there. So as we see, his chest is facing that target, and this club is actually still on this side outside of his hands, which means that the butt end of the club is actually pointed kind of at his chest or at his sternum there. So kind of do a face on for him.
This way, if I had a ball.
Exactly. So what that does, that's going to make sure that face is controlled through our hit, and that we keep rotating so that club doesn't get stuck in to the ground. So Vince, let me ask you this. We have 2 targets out here. One's about 15 yards, one's about 25. What happens if we have to go to that 25-yard target? What do we do?
So I use the 54-degree wedge for the shot at hand here, assuming I have a decent amount of fairway grass and things like that to hit through. Different story if there's a big bunker in the way or something like that, but I use the 54-degree wedge. all I'm going to do is move to my, not 50, but my 46 degree, my
Right.
pitching wedge, have the same motion. We should see about the same trajectory, and ideally the ball coming to rest, this time 25 yards away.
Yeah, let's see one of those. I'll get you set up here.
Thank you.
Give you some decent grass at least.
Great.
Okay, now let's see that same motion again. We're gonna really pay attention to his finish here. All right, so really good trajectory, nice and flat. That club is still almost on the outside of his hands, and actually the face of that club is pointed a little bit more towards the sky. Not all the way up, but you can see that it's surely not shut down too much. That means we're not using too much of our hands through the hit. Let's see one more, Vince.
Oh boy, stuck that one in the ground a little bit.
But
Good
hey,
fish.
got away with it.
Let me try one more where I don't stick it in the ground, but sticking in the ground is just a product of me really not releasing my chest as much as
Absolutely.
I normally would. That's all that is.
Absolutely. I saw a little kind of hit and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, whoops.
Right, I gotta fake it for the camera.
Absolutely.
Let's try one more.
There you go. Plays the slope of the backyard.
I've done this once or twice in my backyard. It all slopes the
Right, home field advantage.
Right.
All right, Westmore members. So those three keys are gonna be very important. Again, the ball position, pretty neutral, about in the middle. Controlling the dynamic loft by having a little bit, not excessive, but just a touch of shaftling at impact, and really getting our chest rotated and facing the target at our finish.
And Jason brought up a great point early on that I think we can't dismiss or even overlook. It's about what do you want the trajectory to look like, as if you were throwing the ball to a friend or trying to get it in a throwing motion. I am not going to loft it way up in the air. I'm going to try and keep it relatively low towards my target and ideally have some success. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely.